Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Mary Price, the Events and Marketing Director at the Shingo Institute at Utah State University. Today, we have Rita Oliveira with us. She's a Portuguese researcher and a PhD candidate at the Southeast Technological University in Ireland. With a background in mechanical engineering and industrial management, her work focuses on operational excellence, the Shingo and EFQM models, and developing sustainable continuous improvement frameworks to help manufacturing industries achieve long-term success. Last week, we published an article in our newsletter and on our website called Seeing the Whole Building Sustainable Organizations, which is the topic that we're discussing today. You can read that article by going to shingo.org/articles. Anna, thank you so much for sharing time with us today, and I'll turn the time over to you.
A pleasure. Thank you so much, Mary, for your kind introduction. Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Rita, and today we are going to talk about how systems drive behaviors. But specifically, we will not focus on how systems drive behaviors in isolation, but how systems drive behaviors through the way that they interact with other systems. And we will be working on the importance of looking at those interactions if we want to build sustainable organizations. So as Mary was saying, my PhD is precisely focused on long-term sustainability of organizations, especially high-performing organizations, just as the Shingo Prize recipients, for example. So we're trying to understand how these organizations can sustain in the long term, even after winning the Shingo Prize, for example. And one of the key factors that always comes out of the research is systems thinking. So the importance of thinking in systems, because we can look at culture, we can look at leadership, we can look at work environment, learning mechanisms, but linear models, they don't mirror the reality of organizations. So we require this holistic approach to understand how we can really drive sustainable behaviors and consequently sustainable performance. So today we will be precisely focusing on the second insight of the Shingo model: purpose and systems drive behavior. So a system is a set of organized elements that work together with a specific purpose. And systems drive behavior in a very powerful way. If we look at one specific system, and for instance, let's imagine that we have a system that rewards, for example, speed over accuracy, we will have naturally associates rushing, and they will not consider quality that much. But if we have another system that, for instance, emphasizes that, or that is designed in a way that punishes mistakes, we will have associates naturally hiding errors instead of surfacing them. Each of the systems drives specific behaviors. But there's a very important layer that we cannot disconsider. And it's the fact that systems naturally interconnect and are connected with other systems. These connection points, they are very important because it's here that real impact is happening. So when we design a system, we can have positive or negative behaviors as an outcome of those interconnections. And recognizing and understanding how systems naturally interconnect help us to drive systems in a very meaningful way and thoughtful way. And we can indeed understand how to drive systems sustainably. When we have an unwanted behavior, instead of just looking at a particular behavior and the system that lies behind it, we should have this holistic approach and understand that maybe that behavior is not the result of just one system, but of various systems that are really working together and producing that effect. When we are redesigning a system to produce the ideal behavior that we want in our organization, sometimes we are producing a contradictory effect in other systems. So the question here is on whether we are truly thinking systemically, as the Shingo model points us, or are we just seeing systems? Because very often when we think that we are thinking systemically, we are seeing systems in an independent way. And that way, we are really not thinking in systems. So thinking in systems is more than designing them and having them written on paper. Thinking systemically is about yes, understanding how the different elements within the system interconnect. And for instance, if we are talking about a work system, it's about seeing how the workflows, the processes, the measures, the tools work together to drive a specific behavior. But thinking systemically is also about understanding how the different systems interconnect and drive behavior collectively. So if we miss this, as I said, we risk improving one system and consequently creating a negative effect in other systems. So let's imagine we have here our ideas and suggestions system in one organization, and the behavior that comes out of this system is an unwanted behavior. So for instance, the employees, they are disengaged, and we want them to feel empowered, and we want them to really make suggestions to help improve the organization. But as the majority of these ideas and suggestions, they are not answered, they are not considered, implemented, they are disengaged, their participation is low, and consequently the improvement rate of the organization is low as well. For instance, let's imagine that now we are going to redesign the system. We will have a platform to track the status of the different ideas, feedback loops every X days or months, and we will have some kind of rewards and recognition at team level, for example. So as we can see, we are naturally impacting other systems, right? So instead of saying, well, we have this unwanted behavior, how can we redesign it? And instead of just looking at that specific system, we should have this holistic thinking and understand what other systems are we impacting and redesign holistically. So we are impacting the rewards and recognition systems. We are impacting, for instance, the training and development, because, for instance, this organization may want to have some more training around root cause analysis, problem solving, teamwork, etc. And then the leader and management system, just as an example, of course, this depends on how systems are designed in your organization, but we are affecting also this system in the way that leaders are role modeling the right behaviors and in the way that they are addressing the ideas that are submitted. Through systems thinking and the power of redesigning systems, having this holistic mindset, we can do this in a very meaningful way by addressing and understanding what are the interconnections with the other systems. And this way, we make sure that we are driving sustainable behaviors, and the behaviors that come out of these systems redesign are as close as to the ideal ones. But the question now is, to what extent do systems actually interconnect within organizations? So I believe that now it would be important to have some practical example of this. Otherwise, this looks very abstract. That's okay. Systems are interconnecting with other systems, but this looks very abstract. Myself and the research team, we have analyzed the Shingo Prize recipients over the past 15 years. And we have here organization C. So it's C because of confidentiality purposes, but it's a recent one. And we have analyzed the achievement report. So the achievement report, as the name suggests, is a report that is written by the organizations where they write what they have achieved. So how they live each of the principles of the Shingo model, what are the systems that they have in place, and how those systems are driving the right behaviors, and also the results that they have over the years, etc. So by doing that, by reading the report, we were able to map out the interconnections of the different systems. So as we can see here, we have 35 systems. We just have these 35 because these are the systems that we found that are in common among the different Shingo Prize winners over the years. So this is why we have only analyzed these systems. We have lots of interconnections, and this number may be even higher, right? Because each organization has their own specific systems that were not considered in this analysis, and these were just by reading the report. So probably if we go to the organization in purpose, we can see many of the interconnections in these blank spaces that we couldn't really see in the report. So in total, we have 184 interconnections. So, and in this chart, we can see exactly what we had in the previous one, but we can really understand how this is complex. This is just for us to understand the importance of redesigning systems holistically instead of just looking at one system at a time. For instance, and in the previous slide, we could see that the individual development system is connected with education and training. It's connected with coaching and mentoring. It's connected with rewards and recognition system, etc. That way, and by mapping out what are the touch points between the systems where they overlap, we can understand if we can redesign systems better and understand that if we are changing a specific system, we are probably driving also change in other systems, and we are impacting other systems. And that impact can be positive and can be negative. And this is the power of thinking holistically and using these tools to understand how we can really design systems in a better way. To move from this siloed mindset to really systems thinking is not just about having systems properly defined on paper. So this is important, of course, to have systems properly defined, but this will not drive sustainable improvements. If we want to really have systems thinking, this must be embedded at all levels of the organization. Because if associates fail to understand the importance of of thinking in systems, or thinking systemically, better said, and how their actions are influencing the whole, we are losing great potential. We have here some of the antecedents that we believe that are crucial when having this thinking mindset. The first of them is really leadership role modeling it. Because leaders, they set the tone for the organization, right? Having leaders with a systems thinking mindset is the first step, but it can't be just leaders attending workshops and learning about systems thinking or talking about it. It needs to be at all at all levels of the organization. Then the next step here is really to understand why it is important to think systemically each of the individuals, each of the associates, and awareness of impacts. This means that having the associates understanding that they are an active part in systems thinking, and this way, by having leaders role modeling behaviors, by having knowledge shared in terms of why this is important, and by having associates understanding that they are an active part to transform and to really create impact, and seeing how they are connected and impact a larger system, we will have real systems thinking. So we will redesign systems that will drive sustainable behaviors in a thoughtful way, and we will drive improvement systemically. So when we have an unwanted behavior, instead of just looking at the system that lays behind it, we should have this holistic mindset and really look at different systems that are interconnected. So understanding what are the different systems that produce these behaviors by mapping them out. And we can do this using an interdependency matrix, using a causal loop diagram, like I showed you in our second slide. There are various tools that we can map the different relationships that systems have. So what are the touch points? And we can reflect and understand on what are the impacts of redesigning one specific part of the system in other systems. By doing this, we are minimizing surprises. Of course, that we cannot address just trying to understand what are all the impacts of each of the variables. When we are redesigning systems, it's impossible to predict all the behaviors that will come out of it, but we are minimizing the potential negative impacts when redesigning the system. So looking for the most impactful interconnections, think strategically and holistically, think about what are the improvements that we can make, and then allow systems to stabilize, measure, understand if the improvements that we made to the systems are driving the behaviors that we consider to be ideal or not. The last step, I believe, is really to understand that this is an endless process. So there is no final step in this process. We cannot say, that's it, we've designed the system and now we don't have to worry more about it, because we have to understand that each organization is a group of different systems working together, but that's inserted in a big ecosystem. That also changes, contexts change, and it's normal for organizations to really need to adapt over time. Additionally, what we consider to be an ideal behavior nowadays, it may not be real in the near future. That's why we have to keep adapt and adjusting our systems in an holistic way, in an integrated way. Based on the research that I showed you previously, so we have studied the Shingo Prize recipients over the last 15 years. I would just like to point out that this is something that we really see in Shingo Prize recipients, and we can really acknowledge this evolution over time. So we can see that the reports over the first period that we have there, they really emphasized operational excellence. So organizations, they were more focused in terms of operations. And then we can see this big shift in terms of looking at the enterprise level. So organizations understand that in order to improve operations, they have to focus on systems that are in enterprise level. But nowadays, what we see in recent Shingo Prize winners is what we've called ecosystem excellence, that they really understand that they are part of a bigger ecosystem that is dynamic. So there are multiple influences of different systems in the ecosystem and in the organization. And these are the touch points between the systems that I will illustrate in a moment. So this is the evolution of systems. This is systems that are most emphasized at each point. So I'm not saying that they didn't exist, for instance, before 2017, but they are mainly emphasized after that period of time. And also they are more formal and more mature. So just focusing on these are not just topics that we have here. These are really systems that organizations have, and they are formal and they are mature. Talking about the system around, for instance, health, environment, and safety, what we could understand was that previously organizations, they were focusing on the EHS system as, they were putting environment, health, and safety all together. It was more around compliance. And nowadays, what we can see is that they are separate. So organizations understand that they play a big role if they want to move and have sustainable growth. So instead of just looking at the system as a whole, we have the environment system, we have the health system, where we talk about the physical, for instance, physical health, but also the mental health. In terms of safety, we talk about physical safety, but also psychological safety, etc. And just to give another example, organizations, they have these big systems to focus on the long term, recruitment against the current culture in the organization, leadership development and succession planning as a way of making sure that improvements, the culture that they have, will sustain over time. Very strong and formal systems around idea sharing and suggestion. And just to finalize, so the main takeaways of the presentation is really that systems drive behaviors, and we need to not only look at one specific system, because that's not thinking systemically, but looking at the system, at the organization as a whole, and understanding that even though we design on paper systems individually, they have touch points and they are connected to different other systems. So behaviors, they are the visible element that shows us not only how systems are designed, but also of the interconnections between systems. And this is definitely an endless process.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anna. We do have one question. What is the main role of the top executive must have to make systems successful?
So the main role that the top executive must have, I would say that is really to role model the behaviors, right? To have this holistic thinking. So making sure that it's not only the executive to understand about systems thinking and to make sure that it has this global vision, but make sure that each of the associates also have it. So for instance, when they are fostering collaboration between other departments, when they are finding a solution for a specific problem, making sure that they are looking enterprise-wide or how that affects other departments, for etc. So having this wider perspective and fostering that at each of the individuals, because in the same way that systems thinking is not looking at systems in an isolated way, the mindsets, thinking systems in terms of mindset is not only having the leaders with this mindset, but each person in the organization as well.
How do you start creating awareness?
I would say that it's by training and education, honestly. So the same way that, the Shingo Institute has workshops to really creating this awareness about systems thinking, I think it's the same for all the associates. So bringing them this awareness, the importance of thinking globally, thinking systemically, and it's really about, I would say it's really about starting with education, training around this at the levels of the organization, not just top level. Yeah.
Next question. What tools should one use to map the interconnection between existing systems?
Okay, we have used two separate tools, and that depends on what you prefer. So one of the tools that we've used and I've showed here is the interdependency matrix. So we have all of the systems and we understand what are the interconnections between other systems. So we just look, well, this is our system. What are behaviors that come out of this system? What are the systems that are interconnected? And we just put some crosses. So we are able to understand what are the more powerful systems or the systems that are impacting most the organization when we redesign specific systems. Also, we can use the causal mapping tool that I've showed in the beginning. So we put the systems with those arrows and we try to understand if that system is driving a positive behavior, so close to the ideal one, or a negative behavior, less close to the ideal ones. I believe these two tools.
How do you measure these relationships between subsystems?
Yeah, so here we're not talking about subsystems specifically, because subsystems are also other systems that are interconnected with the systems. So basically what we think here is, instead of saying this is the system and these are the subsystems of that specific system, what we've done in this piece of research, and we believe that it's important, is really using these tools to map in the big way. So not only looking at continuous improvement subsystems, but looking as a whole at all systems that we have in our organization and trying to map this in the big picture, not only just specific systems, continuous improvement subsystems.
And our last question for today is it fair to say that systems thinking can grow within organizations?
Yes, of course it is. And as I said previously, role modeled by the leadership. So we believe that through sustainable organizations, they will show up, they will arise when we really have everyone in the organization thinking systemically. So how am I impacting the other departments? How am I impacting the organization? How am I impacting to the global purpose of the organization, to the larger system? So it grows within organizations, always role modeled by the leadership.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's all that we have time for. Anna, thank you so much for sharing with us today. It was excellent. And thanks to all of our attendees. There will be a recording that will be available. It's usually out in about an hour. You should get a notification once it's available. So if you missed it, you can come back and share it with people that you work with or whatever. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.